Hi, my name is Kevin, and this is my presentation. It's called Two Approaches to Organizational Behavior, Human Resources, and Systems. There are four primary approaches to organizational behavior. In this presentation, the two that I will be covering are human resources approach, also known as the supportive approach. It sees people as the central resource in any organization and should be developed towards higher levels of competency, creativity, and fulfillment. And the other approach I'll be covering is a systems approach, which views organizations as social systems where each part is interrelated and interdependent. Effects of an action will affect the systems as a whole. For the fundamental features of the human resources approach, people are the central part of any organization, so they are responsible for the organization's success. People are not tools, they are individuals that have their own behaviors and personality. The manager's role is to help employees solve their problems and accomplish their work. Managers take a supporting role and do not practice control or exert authoritative power. The organization seeks to create a supportive work environment and motivates their employees to perform well. For benefits and strengths, the human resources approach works on the premise that employees are self-motivated and take pride in their work. Organizations can leverage employees' self-motivation by providing support and maintaining good relationships. Given the right conditions, employees will work hard without being pushed. Another strength is that it promotes intrinsic rewards as opposed to extrinsic rewards. Some of the challenges and weaknesses of the human resources approach is that it's mainly successful in more developed nations. It's less successful in areas where social and economic needs of the working class is different. It does not work when money is a primary motivation to retain employee satisfaction. As employee needs for material rewards and security become satisfied, employees will then seek more of a supportive approach. This approach is also dependent on effective managers to provide good leadership. In order to be successful, organizations have to make sure their managers adopt a supportive management style. For best practices, managers must create a positive workplace. They should establish strong relationships between their staff and themselves. They should also help employees develop, form their own thinking, and allow them to take initiative. FedEx is one company that's setting the benchmark for human resources practices. They have a PSP philosophy, that's people, service, profit, that's based on the fact if FedEx took proper care of its employees, then they would provide efficient service to their customers and thus help the company generate more profits. Some of the expected outcomes of this approach are that employees will have a feeling of participation and task involvement in the organization. When successful employees are more strongly motivated than other approaches because their status and recognition needs are better met. More satisfied employees result in better financial performance, higher customer satisfaction, higher employee retention, and more productive employees. Now we'll talk about the systems approach. This approach views end goals as only one element in a more complex set of criteria. It unifies efforts of all elements to produce an outcome that is more than the sum of the parts alone. Systems rely on inputs and feedback in order to increase effectiveness. An effective system is characterized by homeostasis and its ability to meet the demands of the various groups that are concerned with its activities. Some of the benefits of this approach include forcing management to focus more on the organization's long-term health and survival instead of just fulfilling short-term goals. It prevents lower-level management from viewing their jobs as static or isolated. It increases managers' and employees' awareness of the interdependence within organizational activities. Improvements to an organization are made by changing the relationship between systems or the configurations inside a system. This approach is useful where the end goal is either very vague or defies measurement. It encourages managers to identify and understand the environment, which results in more effective problem solving. Some weaknesses are that the systems approach is highly dependent on information. Some is easily measured, others are difficult to quantify. For example, it's difficult to talk about interdependence. It's an abstract idea, so determining what and how to measure is a challenge. This approach is not as effective in environments that change rapidly. By the time they're measured, certain information may become irrelevant. It also focuses on the means necessary to achieve effectiveness rather than the organization effectiveness itself. Some of the best practices include using a system analysis to help determine whether it's necessary to rearrange work groups or change how work is assigned to each group. The results of the analysis can be used to optimize strengths and weaknesses of work groups once they are identified. It's important that groups share information and resources so that work groups can learn from each other and avoid unnecessary work. Companies should educate employees so that they recognize how they're connected to other people throughout the organization. General Motors was originally operated as a closed system when it first started, just producing products and selling them without any input from its environment. As competitors came about, General Motors had to adapt. They took input from the customer demands, competitor actions, and government regulation. The company had to change what they produced as well as how they produced it in order to survive against constant waves of challenges. Expected outcomes from this approach include managers helping build an organizational culture where talents are more effectively utilized and further developed. People are more motivated and teams become more productive. Employees should feel that they are part of a whole. They should feel like they are contributing to the whole as well as recognize others' contributions. And ultimately, organizations achieve their long-term goals and society benefits as a result. This has been two approaches to organizational behavior, the human resources approach and the systems approach. Thank you for your time.